Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain you how to work with Excel sheet using Apache POI. So we are using Java language for Selenium. So whenever we are doing test automation, we need to handle with Excel sheet, which means we have to write some data to the Excel sheet, maybe our test case status, and we have to read some data from the Excel sheet. That might be our actual test data. So whenever we have a data-driven or a keyword-driven framework or hybrid framework, we will be using Excel sheet as a main source for our test case as well as test data. So it's very important for us to know how to read and write the Excel sheet using Java language. There are multiple libraries available using which we will be able to handle the Excel sheets. Earlier, we were using a library called JXL, which is helpful for us to read and write it. Later, we have an open source library called Apache POI. So in this video, we will be seeing how we can have the library and how to perform read and write action in Excel sheet using Java language. We'll be using this library. So first I will show you how to add the library. So I'll go back to my Eclipse. So we have a simple Maven project here. In the pom.xml, I already have the dependency for Selenium. I'll quickly open a new tab and I'm going to type Apache POI library Maven dependency. So we will have to add two different libraries, dependencies here. First one will be Apache POI. So I'll take the latest version, which is 5.2.2. And I'll be go to my pom.xml. I'll paste it here. I'll save this. Similarly, there is one more library, which is Apache POI OOXML. I'll go back and I'll write it OOXML. So these two libraries are useful to connect all the Microsoft format files through Java. It's exposing the APIs. So whatever the actions we are doing manually, like creating a file or writing the file, saving the file, closing the file. So all the actions that whatever we are doing manually, we'll be able to do it using Java language if we are having this library. So now I am going to copy this dependency as well, and I'll be pasting it here. As soon as I save it, it will be downloading the jar files. I can see the progress by clicking on this. So it's downloading all the jar files from the internet. And once it is downloaded, we will see what is inside and how to use it. So in the beginning, I told, right, there are different libraries available. And if you ask me why we have to go with Apache POI. So this is a library which is open source and we are getting updates continuously. Whenever there is a bug or whenever there is a vulnerability, they are fixing it immediately. It's being driven by the open source community. So that is the main reason why we are going with Apache POI library, and most of us are using this library in our test automation. And additionally, it's supporting all the major Excel file format. Currently, we are using two different file formats. One is traditional file format, which will be having extension as .xls. So the icon usually looks like is like this, something like it's showing here in the left hand side, whatever I'm highlighting it. Similarly, the latest version of Excels, whatever we are using, it will be like XLSX. It will be the extension and the icon will be looking like this. The reason why we still need to worry about it, because this format that we were following in the year 97 to 2003. But why we need this? If you ask me, still the legacy applications are using this kind of Excel sheets. Whenever we are downloading or exporting some data as an Excel sheet, the applications are still delivering the data as this format. So it's better if it is supporting both type of Excel sheets. Currently it's supporting. And there are multiple interfaces available in this Apache POI library. You know how we usually create an Excel sheet, but we will be creating a workbook inside which we'll be having a sheet. Every sheet will have multiple rows and every rows will have multiple columns which forms a cell. Exactly the same hierarchy this library also having. And we'll be using those interfaces to create or to access the workbook or sheet or row or cell. So now let's quickly see how to create an Excel sheet and write some data into the Excel sheet. Later, we will see how to read the data from the Excel sheet or the combination of read and write together on an Excel sheet. It will be very simple if you are clear with this, the hierarchy. So it's starting with workbook and then sheet, row and cell. And again, the interface depends on the type of Excel sheet which we are handling. If you are using the latest versions, it will be XSSF like it's showing here. For workbook, we have to use this sheet, we have to use this row and cell, we have to use the interface starting with XSSF. Similarly, if you are using the older version, the interface, whatever we are using, it should be starting with HSSF. So this is the only thing that we have to keep in our mind. Now let's quickly go to our project and we'll see how to create a Java file which is having methods to read and write Excel sheet. So I'll create a Java file inside this package. Maybe I'll name it as Excel sheet handling. This is the name of my class. And inside this class, I'll be creating two methods. The method, one method to write an Excel sheet. I mean, creating and writing an Excel sheet. So I'll be using public. I'll create a static method void write Excel sheet. Right. So in this Excel sheet, now maybe I'll try to create an Excel sheet and I'll write some n number of rows and columns in that Excel sheet. First, I have to choose the type, which type, old format or new format. Maybe I'll be using new format. So I have to start with XSSF. So as I show the hierarchy, it should be starting from workbook. So we have to start with XSSF workbook. This is the workbook. Currently, there is no any existing Excel sheet. So I'm just creating a new one. So workbook is the object name equal to new XSSF workbook of. All right. So this is the way we have to create a workbook object. And what will be inside workbook? There will be at least one sheet. So currently there is no any sheet. So I have to create it inside the workbook. The sheet, it is called, again, the same interface we will use, XSSF. Instead of workbook, it will be sheet. So I'll name it as worksheet. And this worksheet should be created inside workbook. So I'll create like workbook dot create sheet. And if I want, I can give some name to the sheet. Like here, sheet 1. I will name it as sheet 1, semicolon. So I created a workbook and I created a sheet as well. Now what I have to do, I have to follow the hierarchy. So we have to create rows and cells inside which I can write the data. Maybe for now, I'm going to write the cells for 10 rows and 10 columns. Maybe we will write some random data. For that, I may need a for loop. Two for loops may be required. One for iterating to the row and one for iterating through the column. So with respect to Excel sheet, the row number, right? The row number starting with 0. I think, yeah, it's not starting with 0. I think we can have this starting with 0 and we'll be incrementing till n number of rows. So what I'm going to do, first I will create a row number into row equal to 0 semicolon, and I'm going to have iterator for n number of rows, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have this iterator I equal to 1 semicolon, I is less than or equal to 10 semicolon I plus plus. So the outer for loop will create rows and the inner for loop will create columns or cells. Here my aim is to create a row here. So I'll create a row small row equal to, where I have to create a row, I have to create a row inside my worksheet. So I'll type worksheet dot create row. So there I have to pass the row number. So whenever it's starting with 0, I have to increase the row number. So I'm mentioning row plus plus, which means every time it's coming, it will be incrementing by 1. I think I'm using the same. Here it should be row number and this is actual row. And row number I have to pass it here. So it's creating a conflict now. All right, now we have to have a column, right? For every row, the column also will be starting with 0. So int column number starting with 0. And here I can have another iterator, say j. And j will be starting from 1 to, again, 10 columns we can write. So j is less than or equal to 10 semicolon j plus plus. We are going to write 10 rows and 10 columns. And here inside what we have to create, here it's not column, it's called a cell. So cell I'm creating, it's going to be individual cell equal to, where I have to create a cell, I have to create cell inside my row. So row dot create cell of, and here I have to use the column number. And every time if I have to use the column number and increment it. Now I have created a cell as well. And whenever there is a requirement, we have to import it from Apache POI. I imported it. I'm going to now use this cell and write some value inside this cell. So how to write a value in an Excel sheet? There is a method called set cell data. So there are multiple values we can set inside a cell. So all are coming under the method called set cell value, and depends on the data type of the value, you have to choose the respective method. Say currently I'm going to write a string inside every cell, so I can select this method. If you want to enter a date or double value, integer value, you have to select the respective method. So here I'm just going to store a string. Maybe in this string, what I'm going to do, I'm going to store like row number and column number. Row space, what is the row value, which is I, and column space, what is the column number, it's j. So I am going to write this in the respective cell, say which row and which column of the cell it is. All right, so this is how we will be writing in an Excel sheet. But till now we never told, right, where we have to write and where we have to save the Excel sheet. So here, just like we are creating object and we are writing all the data, but we have to write it as a new sheet. For that, what we need to have, file output stream. So we are going to get an output stream and we will be writing in the object. So first I'll be creating file output stream. So whenever we are writing some data, we have to use output stream. Whenever we are reading data, we have to use input stream. So file output stream, I'll change just to keep it as FOS. So in this only, what I'm going to use, I'm going to use new object of file output stream, and I will have to mention the file path. Here the input should be a file. So how to have that file path? So we have to create a file object, file or file Excel file equal to new file of, there I have to give the entire path. So for now, I am going to store the Excel sheet inside my SRC test resources. Maybe I'll create a folder called Excel, or I will keep it as test data. So how to get the current path using Java? Path equal to system dot get property. So here we can mention user.dir, which will give me the current directory, which is nothing but current project. And then additionally, what I have to do, I have to add the remaining path. Remaining path is nothing but /src slash test slash resources slash test data. So here where I have to save my Excel sheet and I have to give the name of the Excel sheet with correct extension. So here I will be mentioning as demo.xlsx. So this is my entire path. I'll be using this path and create a file object, and I'll be passing the file object to the output stream. And this usually throws some exception because whenever we are creating a object for a stream, we have to close that stream. So it's better to have try and catch for this. And in the finally block, right, we can create a finally block. And inside a finally block, we can always close that stream irrespective of failure. So FOS dot, this FOS, I think we have to declare it outside so that it will be accessible by finally class. So now if you see here, FOS dot close. If it is throwing some declaration, you can still throw it. Or if you want, you can do in the finally block as well. Still it is giving null. Okay, so I created an output stream. Then what I have to do, I have to use this output stream to write my Excel sheet. Currently my Excel sheet is nothing but my workbook dot, there is an option called write. Here I can pass the output stream. So after writing, we have to close the workbook. Workbook dot close. So this is a simple method where I am following all the steps. First, where creating the workbook, worksheet, then corresponding rows and columns. Finally, we are writing the workbook using output stream and closing it. Let me execute this code. So this code will currently create a workbook inside this folder test data, and it has to write the data inside it. Let's see whether it is working or not. If the path is correct, it will work. So I have to call this method under a main method. Let me create a main method and write Excel sheet is the name of the method, which is throwing a exception. IO exception. IO exception means in case the path is incorrect, the exception will come. Input output exception will come. Okay, I will write now, execute the test case. It's not test case, it's a method. So it has to create an Excel sheet and have to. All right, I think it is getting created. Now let me right click on the project and refresh it so that I'll be able to see whether it's generating or not. Yes, it is generating. Now I want to see the content of this Excel sheet. So I can open with the system editor. System editor means it will open with our Excel sheet. Or directly, I think if you want, we can open in Eclipse as well. Let's see. So I'm able to see that it's creating a sheet one and it's writing each row and column value, whatever we gave for 10 rows and 10 columns. I hope you are able to see that. So this is how we can write any data. All we need is the object for the workbook. Then we need a row and column number where we have to exactly want to write. So I'll close this. I don't want to save this. One thing I want to tell here is whenever we are writing in an Excel sheet, if you are opening the existing Excel sheet, then it will be giving us an error. And another thing is currently we are creating a new Excel sheet and writing it. Suppose we are already having some Excel sheet, but I want to write in that means you can directly create a input stream, then create a workbook, then use the output stream to write into it. That way you can do it. I will show you that how to write to an Excel, read from an existing Excel sheet. There you will understand. We will do write as well in the same function. So public void. Now read Excel sheet. So R should be small letter. And what I am going to do, I am going to use the same path. This path here to read from an Excel sheet. This is my base path. Okay. Now how to open an existing Excel sheet to read the content. Again, it's not a rocket science. The same way, like how we have written, we have to do it. But as I was telling, to open an Excel sheet and read it, we need a file input stream. Like how we used the output stream to write it, we need a file input stream to read it. So new file input stream of, there we have to pass the Excel sheet object or my path of the Excel sheet. This again will throw some exception. We can throw it. And then what we have to do now, I am going to again fit it into my objects. So what is the main parent object, which is nothing but my workbook. Which workbook it is? It's going to be XSS workbook. So this is my workbook equal to new workbook of, but here I am not going to create a new workbook, rather I am going to use the input stream to read the existing Excel. So I am passing the input stream already. Now it will also throw the exception, IO exception. I'll throw it. Now what else we have to do? You know, right? We are already having the sheet. Which sheet we want to read? We have to mention it. So it's again the same sheet, XSS worksheet sheet, I think sheet equal to, from workbook I'm going to get the sheet, workbook dot get sheet and the name of the sheet whatever we want. So we were writing with the sheet 1, so I am using the same name to read from that. If you're not giving some name which is not available, here we will get an error. And now what we are going to do, we don't know how many rows and columns available. So in that case, there is an option in Java which is called iterator. So what iterator will do, iterator will automatically find out a number of rows and columns, and then it will be using advanced for loop to print for us. So here we have iterator for both rows and columns. So iterator, I'm writing as iterator, that's why it's not coming. So I'm going to create iterator for row. Row is already an object here. So I'll get row from this iterator. So what sheet we are going to use it? I'm going to read from the sheet dot iterator. So here there are different iterators. I'm generically using iterator. From again I can use the, from row I can use another iterator to take my columns. So row iterator is here, which will be returning iterator of row. I have to import this from java.util. Now I will be using advanced for loop or while loop. We can use while loop so that we don't need to worry about the number of rows. Right. So what we can mention, whenever there is a next row is available, it has to iterate. So here what we can have, row dot has next. If there is a row next, then go and find out row. So current row is nothing but current row equal to whatever the row is there, or iterator dot next. I'm checking whether it's having a next row or not. If it is having, I'm using iterator to run it, which is nothing but row dot next. So it will be giving me one row after another. But I need to go to exact column and then I have to print the cell. So from row, how to get the column? Again, there is an iterator for column. Like similarly, we have written for row. But here it's not column, it's for cell because there is no column in this Apache POI. Instead of row, sorry, instead of sheet, I'm using current row. And instead of row iterator, we will be using cell iterator. So this is the cell iterator I'm using. Now that's all. So again, this is a individual cell, right? Every row can have multiple cells. So I may need another while loop. And if the cell dot has next, then get the cell, which is nothing but my current cell. Exactly the same one, whatever we were writing, cell dot next. That's all. So cell again, we have to import it. This is a kind of a iterator method. What happened? The type will be CLL cell. I have to import it. I think I already imported. What it is returning? It is returning a cell object. So I already added it. Change it to cell. No. In the top, we have to import the cell. Yes, I imported. Okay, bracket is missing. That's why I got confused. All right. So currently I received a cell. All I need is I need to get the data from the cell and print it. So I will just add system.out.println or just a print because every cell will be directly printing in the same row, and we can add it. So already I have written cell value as a string value, right? So I have to use get cell string value. Control space, if you give, it will be giving get string cell value. Yes. And if you want some delimiter, maybe you can add it so that you will be able to understand what is the different data from each cell. Something like this. So what this code will do, read the existing Excel sheet, and then it will be printing the data. So this will be printing for one row. And if I need a space between one row and another row, maybe I can add a empty line. That's all. What else we need? We don't need anything. Let me save this file and let me quickly execute it and see whether it is printing the content of the Excel sheet or not. I'm running this as a Java application. Okay, it's not printing. The reason is I have to call this here. I'm calling write Excel sheet, but I won't read Excel sheet now. I'll comment this. I have already Excel sheet created, and this will throw some declaration. I'll change this to static. If I execute this, it has to print the existing values in the Excel sheet. Yeah, it is printing correctly. If you can see in the console, all the 10 rows and 10 columns are printed. Now you may have a question here. I am reading now. Simultaneously, I want to write it. How we can do that? And if you ask me, it's very simple. You know how to write it. So we already have the object already. Say we know the current row or we know the sheet. This is the sheet. So already there are 10 rows available. So I'm going to create a new row. Maybe I'll write it as 12. 12th row I'm creating. And this is going to be my row, right? New new row. Because inside a new row only, I can create cell. Or if you want, you have to take the any existing row from this iterator and can create a cell. I'm creating a new row at the 12th position, and after that I have to create cell, which is my new cell equal to new row dot create cell of 12th row 13th column. Maybe I want to write somewhere. And what else I need to write? Then inside the cell I have to use the set cell value, right? So I will use new cell dot set string set cell string value. I think it will be set cell value. Inside that I have to select the method called string. So I'll put it something like this. Maybe if I want, I can use my name. So after reading, I'm doing writing as well. When writing will be complete, we have to create a file output stream and we have to write it in a workbook. So again, we have to create file output stream object FOS equal to new file output stream of. Here the file will be our existing Excel file. whatever we are reading. Then my current workbook is the dot write FOS. Then finally, if you want to, you can close the workbook as well. Workbook dot close. Now, if I do this, what will happen? It will first read the Excel sheet, then it will write some value in 12th row, 13th column. Then it will close the workbook. Let's open and see whether that is doing or not. It's like we are doing read and write simultaneously. I'm executing as a Java application. It is completed. Now I will just right click and do open. I think it will open here. So if you see, it's typing the name, my name in the 12th row. I mean, here it is called a 13th. 12 is the index. It's starting from 0, right? So it's writing in the respective row and column. Meanwhile, it's reading and printing the value as well. So this is the core functionality, how we can do read and write actions on an Excel sheet using Apache POI library. But you know why you need to know this? In the real time projects, we will have frameworks. Inside the frameworks, they'll have utility functions, which means it's all reusable functions where we can directly call the function wherever there is an action required. So in that functions, they will have functions for how to read an Excel sheet by passing the row and column value, or how to write a data in an Excel sheet by passing respective row and column value. Similarly, if you want, you can create your own utility function like Excel utils or whatever you want with some reusable methods, which will accept the path or take the path from environment variable. Then it will be accepting row comma column value to get you the string value from the specific row and column, or it will be accepting row column value with some other value to write it inside the Excel sheet. And one good practice or one essential practice that I want to tell is, whenever you are handling an Excel sheet, you should be reading it and you are writing it, whatever the action may be. You have to open it only once and you have to close it at the end. Say you are writing 50, 60 cells, rows and columns. So you should not open Excel sheet every time, like 50 times you should not open, you should not write and you should not close. No, only once you have to write it in the beginning, and whatever the data you want to write or read, do it, then close it at the end. Sometimes you can tell me, hey, I want to read a huge data from an Excel sheet, how I can read it? So whenever I want, I can read it. No, that's not a good practice. So first take entire data and store it in a data structure, maybe 2-dimensional array. You can store it there. And then whenever you want, you can read from the data structure instead of every time opening an Excel sheet and reading from respective cell. That can be one good practice I thought of telling you. So that's all about it. If you have any question, you can put it in the comment section or you can reach out to me. This is just a quick overview. We can write any number of reusable functions using these core functions. Here, just like I am hard coding like 10 rows, 10 columns, and I'm writing some random string inside it. But in the real time, we ideally write in a single cell and we will read from single row and store it in a list of string or a hash map with key value pair. That depends on the use case. So that's all about it. So from the interview perspective, you need to know what is the difference between XLS and XLSX, like how you will be using interface for different types of Excel sheets, and this hierarchy also. Then you need to know what are all the two dependencies you have to add. Then you can obviously do the action of your own based on the requirement. So that's all about it. Thank you all for watching.